So all today I've been covering this Variety article on Agatha all along with the creator, and she had some things to say about Nicholas Scratch, the son of Agatha. Let's go through the questions and kind of break down what she said. So who is Nikki's father? That's a story for another day, but ultimately for me, it's irrelevant in this story. I have to agree with that. Do you know who it is? The truth is, if I did have an answer, I don't cover it in this property. So it is a footer for a story for another day that I maybe don't have control over. That's a smart answer to put out. You do have Agatha saying, I made you from scratch to Nikki right after he's born, which could mean so many things. Like he was conjured, or he's an immaculate conception. Where did that line come from? I came up with it, and my co writer loved the line so much. She was like, I feel like I could have written this. But she said it in a lovely way of, it's a born of our work. When Agatha chooses to kiss Rio and end her life after Billy telepathically asks her about Nikki, I interpreted that as realizing she could save Billy from death in a way she could never with Nikki. Yeah, I will say the reality is the finale pieces of these projects are very, very hard because there's a lot of Marvel burden to deal with. There's a lot of fan expectation, there's a lot of familiarity. I deal in tropes of other pop culture stuff, but then you get into the tropes of the MCU, so we're hurtling towards a moment of crucible, and when everyone's expecting a redemption arc for Agatha and she sacrifices herself from the beginning, you feel like that's where it's going. I was interested in doing that in a recognizably Marvel way, but have it to be different. It's a kiss, not a blast. It actually was a late stage idea in post that he would say, is this how Nikki died? I think ultimately it's Billy manipulating Agatha after being manipulated by her. He's truthful, but also he's like, I have one shot at saying something to this woman to make her stop. Ooh, so there's a little bit of some dark side to him. That's actually a really cool and interesting thing she's talking about. Let's turn to Nicholas Scratch. His story in the comics is radically different. How did you arrive at what happens to him in your show? I was really interested in the idea of Agatha's source pain being something very human, very intimate, and very private. We talked a lot about Agatha, the performer, and the liar, and I was very interested in peeling back all the layers and then just having the story be Agatha had a son who did not have power. She loved him, and he died. It's so tragic to me, and it takes my breath away. Was there anything about Nikki's story that didn't make the final episode? We had this thing of Agatha looking at the camera throughout the show, and we ended up cutting almost all of them out. The idea behind it was that we wanted the Nikki sequence to be the only thing that Billy didn't see and that Rio doesn't even know the fullness of. It was Agatha not performing for the first time, but the audience is let in on it. And in the end of episode 9, when she says the ballad didn't mean anything, it never did, there's a lovely moment that Catherine gave where she looks to the camera to convey that she's lying, that the ballad means everything to her for reasons Billy could never understand or imagine. We cut it because it didn't work in the larger catharsis of later moment of Agatha saying, because I just can't face him, but it's one of my few regrets. I find it so heartbreaking that even then they pretend like the ballad didn't mean anything, but the ballad is her kid. This is really deep. I really am interested to kind of dive deeper into Nikki potentially in the future because I feel like, he's not a known character, but I feel like he has some potential. And if you didn't know, my name is also Nick, so maybe I have a little bit of connection to a character named Nick as well. But this is interesting. Nikki's father, does she know who his father is? It seems like she does know who his father is, but she just didn't want to tell that story here, and I think that makes sense. I feel like it could be left up for interpretation right now and have people speculate, which is better. I feel like for the show, get more people talking. But it's interesting, kind of the way Agatha turns out at the end of the show, when with being a kiss and kind of a way for her to sacrifice herself because she couldn't save her son Nicholas, so she could save Wanda's son, Billy. It's interesting, and it's an interesting turn for this character.